it has been another week, and it is time for the next part of our story. But first, every week we talk about what? We talk about what time it is on the church calendar. Now, that's an interesting question, isn't it? Why do we do that? We do it so that we know where we are. Now, you know where you are and I know where I am, right? Of course we do. But the important thing is that we remember where we are in the context of the church year. What's the church year as opposed to the regular year? Is there a difference? Well, yes. We are going to learn in the next few weeks that the Hebrew people, the people of God, they celebrated a lot of different feasts and festivals and holidays, things that were written down for them to remember. And that's what we do too. We have a whole calendar for the church to remember God's faithfulness, to put colors to things that are important, to help us transition in our hearts from one thing about God to the next. See, the church here helps us know more about God and about our relationship with God and our relationship with each other as the people of God. So, in a few weeks, probably like a month and a half right now, we are going to switch to a different color, and it's going to be exciting because that color, you feel it. You feel that color, the next color, and you know that something really good is coming. Now, the color that we are in right now, you guys may even be bored. You may be thinking, why is she even asking us again what color it is when it's going to be the same color? But I think it's kind of important to note that. Do you know why? Because most of our lives, most of the days that we live during the year take place in this color. Do you know what it is? That's right, it is green. And what is the season called? Yeah, ordinary time. It's called ordinary time because it's ordinary. Does anyone know what that word means? Does everyone know what that word means? It means normal, everyday kind of time. The days that we live through and we do the same thing and the same thing and the same thing over and over and over again. In fact, that's most of our lives, isn't it? We get up and we eat breakfast and we do stuff and we eat lunch and we do stuff and we eat dinner and we go to bed and we get up and we do it all over again. And it's important that we remember that God uses those very ordinary things to do really great and wonderful things in the hearts of his people. So that's why we talk about it every week, okay? All right. Now that we've talked about that, are you ready for the next part of our story? Last week, we left baby Moses just as he was drawn out of the river, right? The Nile River, by none other than the Pharaoh's daughter, the princess of the whole land of Egypt, pulled him out of the river. My goodness. And he had his own mom to take care of him. His sister Miriam had thought, when the princess asked, could you find me a Hebrew woman to look after, to nurse this little boy and to keep him and to nurture him, to take care of him? She went and got her own mom. Isn't that crazy? So Moses, which literally means pulled from the water, was cared for by his own mother for a while before he got a little bit older. And then he went to live as a prince in Egypt, the grandson of the Pharaoh. Let's see what happens next, shall we? Okay. All right. So, Moses grew and grew until he was all grown up. You see him? He looks a little different, doesn't he? He is an Egyptian prince. He has fancy clothes and his crown, and he even has the Egyptian hairstyle, doesn't he? he looks a little bit different. Well, Moses had grown and grown and grown. But Moses knew, he still knew. Do you remember how he was raised, he was nurtured and loved on by his mother until he grew older? He knew that he was one of God's people. He knew that. Sometimes we think in the story that maybe he didn't know that. He knew that. And so as he grew older, he began to watch the things that were happening in the kingdom of Egypt. And he didn't really like what he saw. One day, he was out walking around, and he saw some of the Hebrew people. They were working hard to build pyramids and other things for the Pharaoh. They would have to build them one brick at a time, and they'd have to mix the cement and make things so that they could build these giant buildings for the Egyptian people, for the Pharaoh. And he was out one day, Moses, and he saw one of the Egyptian overseers, one of the men, beating, hurting one of the Hebrew men. And it made Moses angry. It made him so angry to see the Egyptian man beating up the Hebrew man. It made him so angry inside. And instead of dealing with his anger in the right way, Moses did not handle it at all. He let the anger build up inside of him. And instead of going and telling maybe his mother or somebody that this was not right, Moses took care of it then, or so he thought. Moses killed the Egyptian man. He killed him so that he wouldn't hurt the Hebrew man anymore. And then Moses went away. He went back to the palace, back to his home. He went and he hoped that no one would find out what he had done. He couldn't believe he had done it. After the anger subsided, he thought, what have I done? And he thought, maybe no one will notice. So he went back to his home. But the next day, he came out and was walking out among the people again. And two Hebrew men were getting into an argument about something. And Moses was standing there, and they noticed him all of a sudden. And they said to him, what, are you going to kill one of us like you killed that Egyptian? Oh my goodness, Moses thought. Oh no, this must mean that they know. The matter has become known, he said. I have to go. And indeed, the Pharaoh, the king, his grandfather, became very, very angry that Moses had done this, and he wanted to kill Moses. So Moses had to run away. And Moses ran into the desert. Everywhere around them, outside of Egypt, was the desert. And Moses ran and he 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 ran. And he tried to get away. He wanted to get away as fast as he could so that he wouldn't be killed. He wouldn't be killed by his grandfather, the Pharaoh, who was not happy with him. And he had indeed done something wrong, even though his heart was to help the Hebrew people. And so he ran and ran away. And he was finally out in the middle of the desert, in the middle of nowhere, and he came upon a well. And he was very thirsty at this point, but he was standing to the side, and he saw some other men at the well, coming towards the well, and he saw some women. There were some women. And they were trying to draw water for their animals and things from the well. But while they were doing that, these men came up and became very angry at these girls and women because they wanted to be first. and they started to bully them. And Moses was watching again, and the injustice of it made him very angry. And he was watching and watching, but instead he did not hurt anyone. But he walked up and he said, "Who are you that you are going to bully these women, these girls? Leave them alone." And you know what? The men were afraid of him, and they left. They left, and they left the women alone. And then the women gave Moses some water from the well. And they took him home to their home, which was very helpful because at this point Moses didn't have a home, did he? So after he helped them at the well, they took him to their home. They were Bedouins, and they lived out in the desert. And they had tents that they would move, and they would move around to wherever the food and things were. Wherever they could find food and what they needed to live, they would move around. And so they lived in these beautiful big tents, their whole family. Now, when the father heard what Moses had done, the father of these girls, these young women, had heard what Moses had done, he said, "You are welcome in my family. You may come and live here with us." He said, "You should live with us, and we will take care of you, and you will be like our family. In fact," he said, "you may marry one of my daughters." And so eventually, Moses actually married Zipporah, one of these daughters. And after a while, Moses became like this family. He lived out in the desert with them for many, many years. He lived as a Bedouin and a shepherd. This is what they did. They herded sheep and they lived off the land and they would move around. And so Moses left behind his life as the prince of Egypt and he became a shepherd. So he would go out and take care of the sheep every day. And he learned to live this life. He looks a little different, doesn't he? Because he no longer lived his Egyptian life. He lived out in the desert and cared for the sheep. Now one morning, everyone was asleep, probably. But Zipporah is asleep there, and maybe the father's asleep over there, and all the other daughters, sisters, everyone was asleep. And Moses had to get up early, He had to get up early and go out and take care of the sheep. This was part of his job. So he went to take care of the sheep. And as he was going, one of the sheep kind of wandered off and around. And so Moses had to keep following the sheep and trying to lead them to the grass and the water that they needed to drink. And as he was out there, he came upon something very curious. He was going on his normal walk with them. And the sheep kind of wandered around, and here Moses came upon this strange bush. He could almost not believe his eyes. You see, this bush was there, like any normal bush. But as he came up close to it, he realized it was on fire. He could tell it was on fire, but it was not burning up. And Moses became a little afraid. He became a little scared. What is this kind of bush that it is on fire, but it's not burning up? And then a voice spoke to him and said, "Moses, Moses." And Moses thought, He said, "Yes, I am here. I am here." And the voice said, "Moses, take off your sandals because this is a holy place." And Moses got down on his face and he said, "Who are you? Who are you?" And the fire said to him, "I Abraham and of Isaac and of Jacob. I am that I am. And Moses was in awe. And then God said to him, Moses, I have a job for you. You have a job for me, Lord. What could you possibly want from me? You are the God of my ancestors. What could you need from me? I am just a shepherd. And he said, Moses, I want you to go to the Pharaoh of Egypt and say, let my people go. What? Moses said, what? You want me to do what? Of all the things, of all the people, of all the... Moses couldn't even speak. He said, God, I don't even speak very well in public. I'm not very good at it. I get really nervous and anxious and afraid. I think you should choose someone else. And God said, no, Moses, I have chosen you. He said, I will also equip your brother Aaron to help you, but it is you. You will go and you will talk to Pharaoh and you will lead your people out of captivity. Moses was in awe. Me? Are you sure? Oh. And God told him to throw down his staff they used with the sheep. And it became a serpent. And then God told him to pick it back up. And it became his staff again. And he told him to put his arm inside of his coat, inside of his cloak, and pull it out. And he did, and it was covered in this leprosy. And he put it back in, and it went away. And he told him, I will give you signs so that my people will know that I have sent you, and so that Pharaoh will know that I have sent you. Moses thought, okay, I guess this is true then. And then Moses left. He walked down from the little mountain and away from the bush and went back to where his whole family was sleeping. And he probably woke them all up, don't you think? To tell them what he had heard from God. Wow! 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 That's all I can say. What do you think about that story? What do you think, guys? Isn't that kind of crazy? What about this bush that doesn't burn up? I have never seen anything like that. Have you? This story makes me wonder a lot of things. And maybe it makes you wonder a lot of things too. Does it make you think about a lot of things? One of my questions is, why would God want to use Moses after he did something really horrible? Where did we see sin in this story? Really big. Where did we see it? That's right. Moses killed someone. He killed another man, didn't he? Was that right? No. Murder is never right, is it? Was it right what the Pharaoh was doing to the people, the Hebrew people? No, it definitely wasn't, was it? So if someone else is doing something bad to people, should you do something bad as well? No, that's true. No. But here's the thing. Did God just leave his people without anything? No. It's interesting, isn't it? And he still chooses to use Moses. I wonder why. I wonder what was in Moses' heart. Even when he did the horrible thing that he did, I wonder what it was in him that made him so angry. I wonder if God thought about that. See, I think Moses was right, wasn't he? to be angry about the enslavement, about Pharaoh thinking that he could own the Hebrew people, about how the Egyptians were choosing to treat the Hebrew people. It's not right for someone to beat another person, is it? And while Moses should not have killed that man, that was also wrong. And it does not make something wrong better to do something else wrong. Does that make sense? But Moses is going to get another chance to stand up for the Hebrew people, isn't he? But this time he's going to do it with God, and God is not going to leave him no matter what. Here's my question. Did God leave Moses when he was the baby in the basket? No, he did not, did he? Did God leave Moses when he wandered out into the desert? No, he provided him with a family, didn't he? I wonder what God is going to do with Moses next. Well, it is time to end for today. But if you come back next week, we are going to see what happens to this shepherd, Moses, as he obeys what God has asked and he goes back to Egypt. We will have to wait and see, okay? I will see you next time, and you just keep thinking about this story. There's a lot in this story to unpack, a lot to think about. And if you have any questions, you can ask your mom and dad. You could send them to me. I would be glad to answer them because there's a lot to think about in this story, isn't there? All right, I will talk to you soon. See you next week.